Hey and welcome, thanks for checking out episode 2 of this project. Let's see what we're making. Today in this video we're going to take a look at shading and animation. It's actually the other way around. We're going to look at animation and then shading. So we'll get our project really close to exporting into After Effects, which we'll do last. At this point in the project we should be done with not only blocking out but finalize the letters. Now we're going to jump into Blender and continue this process with animation. Let's go. And so the first thing we're going to look at today is, once we have the letters finished, we're going to start animating both the letters themselves and the camera as well. And then the second thing we're looking at today is shading. So first we're going to make sure that our animation is kind of the same. Try to go as close as possible, right? And then we're going to try to make them look the same. What you should have, if you followed along and you kind of follow the same process that I did in the first video, what you should have now is these letters blocked out and no animation whatsoever. We'll take and create a window like this. The shading window usually looks like this by default, and you can just add a new window by dragging in. When you see this cursor turn into this plus shape, then you can just drag in a window, and then we'll change this to a video sequencer, or a movie clip editor rather, and we'll load in a PNG sequence. You can use a bunch of different programs to turn a video into a image sequence. So once we have the image sequence, we can load it into this editor, this movie clip editor, and we'll keep it up here for our reference. The other window we want to set up is the animation window. So in the animation window, we'll load in a different editor as well, so we have a reference. It's always important to have reference, so that's the whole point of putting these in here. What I'm looking for first is not the camera movement, but when do the letters themselves stop turning, because we see that the letters themselves turn. The way I set this up, if I just go ahead and delete all these keyframes, so I'll show you here the way I did this on the 3. You want it to go to the end of the animation where the 3 stops turning. And that to me seems like this 107 area. So 106, and I'll hit an animation keyframe there with I, and then I'll just hit rotation. So this will give me a keyframe here, and then I'll go all the way back to where the 3 starts turning, and that's about here. It looks like it's not even turning here. It starts right here. So I'm gonna add another keyframe after I turn it. So first I'm gonna turn it, which is RZ over on the Z axis, and we can be exact with this by just saying RZ 90, negative 90, RZ negative 90, and then hit enter, and this completed a 90 degree, and now we can hit I, and then on rotation now our 3 is turning. I re-recorded this part because I messed it up. And I wanted to slow down my rotation a little bit, so it's kind of I adjusted it with another keyframe that I added in here for rotation again. So that's all I did. Once you grab these rotations, you can pretty much duplicate it over and just offset it. So I wanted the letters to turn slowly. If you see the reference, it looks like the 3 is slightly after the rest of them. So that's all I made sure that we did that, and that's it. Of course, the chapter as well, I did each letter, and you see all it is a rotation keyframe. Very, very simple. Couple key points about this is, if you're rotating, once you're done with a mesh, let's go close to this R. When you finish modeling a mesh like this, sometimes the point of origin can be offset. So if you're trying to rotate this R, let's say, and I didn't have this tiny dot, this point of origin set right, then you can just go to Object, Set Origin, and Origin to Geometry. This will set this little point into the geometry center of this R. So now when you're rotating it, it's gonna rotate on this axis instead of any whatever random axis. It could be on the floor, wherever it started from when you were modeling. That's one of the things. The other thing that's very important is, if you look up here in my inspector, you will see that after I'm done modeling each one of the letters, I will name each object. And this is just a really good thing to get used to because things get really messy. So you don't want to just look at a cube.006 and you don't know what that is. This way I can go back and grab stuff. When I made this project, there was no such thing as collections in Blender. So now what we can do is even add them to collections. So you can select a row of this. Let's say these are all the chapter texts. I selected all of them with Shift. I click on the top one I click on the top one and then hold Shift, click on the bottom one, you select all of them, and then you can push M as in map or move, and you can add a new collection. And then here you could say chapter, for example. And this is really cool. Collections are really cool because this allows a designer to really try things out and hide things and move things around a lot easier than if you were just, let's say, muting or adjusting visibility on these or adjusting the render visibility or whatever. You can drag and drop things, you can highlight multiple things. It's really added a lot to Blender that I can't believe it didn't have before. So we can do this with all of them. My project's already done, so this is again just kind of more of a project walkthrough than a tutorial. With that said, let's keep going. Once our letters are done and we have it matched to our reference, and we just made sure that the movement of the letters are ending exactly at the same time. So then the next thing to do is to animate the camera. Just add a new camera. This is what you'll have to do unless you didn't delete your original camera. And I'll just call it Cam Remake. And I'll go ahead and change my camera to the Cam Remake. Always remember you gotta change that when you're adding a new camera so you can see through it by pressing 0. And then I'll go and hit Shift tilde key to control this like a video game. As far as the camera goes, so I can look around with Shift. I can fly a lot faster. This is the flying mode. So if you ever played video games, WASD, you can fly around. With Shift you can fly more, you can strafe. With E you could go up. It's great. It's a really cool way to fly around your model. And so we'll kind of do the same method as we've done with the letters. We're gonna go ahead and check our reference and add our timeline and see where the camera stops moving. So we see the camera does a rapid movement and then slows down right here, right? So the rapid movement kind of stops. If I could just play it. Stops right around here. So we wanna, and this is again a little bit of eyeballing, but you want this spot to be the same, including the size of the letters comparing to the edge of the frame. So what I usually do is just check how far is the J from the side of the frame, how far is the top of the 3 from this side of the frame, and then of course my chapter. It's pretty well aligned, but that's not all we're looking for. We're also looking for how much of the J can you see going back, because that's perspective, and that could do with the focal length of the camera. Let's just put a keyframe here. Let's put a keyframe here, and we want to make sure that we add not just a location, but a location and rotation keyframe. Because the camera here is not only moving on an axis, it's not just a transform, we're also rotating slightly, and especially with the camera shake, we're gonna have a bunch of little rotations. So this is good, and then we'll take another point. So if we'll go back, we'll add another point, and I'm gonna add one here, and we're gonna try to recreate what we see down here up here. So I'm gonna move my camera, Shift tilde, and move it in the same way it seems to come in. And of course I could cheat because here's my other camera. So this is what I guess I chose. It's something like this, right? Pretty close. I think the edge here on the left is, it's a little bit different. Let's go ahead and hide these. Nope, it is good. It's pretty good. it's pretty good. So, and let's lock this in again with I and then location rotation. Now, this is what we're gonna be using a bunch. On the left side, we have, now that we've set 2 keyframes, we can see all this information, which is the transition of the keyframe. So how one keyframe transitions to the other, and we're gonna come in here and adjust that and fiddle with this until we're super happy with the results. And then let's go all the way to the beginning and put our camera where it goes right here. So this is here. Again, I'm cheating because it's my other camera, but this is about where we go. Let's say I'll set it a little bit different, and then if we play it back, and if we, of course, we kind of play it back together, maybe we can see it better here. I switch to the camera, kind of side by side, right? So, and we can see how the camera is coming out and the letters are turning. And of course Parabellum is in here, but in our final and in our reference, Parabellum comes in slowly. Okay, so I think the last step we need to add is like one more keyframe way out here, because we'll have the camera pull further out, way further out actually. If we compare the two size wise, it's like out here. And I know the black bars kind of throw me off usually, but this looks pretty close to me. The camera shake. The way I achieved the camera shake is I didn't want to combine these animations of the smooth camera coming out. So let's switch back to our camera. So the fact that we are so smooth right here, right? And we've adjusted and fiddled with these settings so much that this is nice and clean. This motion is nice and clean. The camera shake is only happening at the very beginning, as it's not even happening here. It starts happening at like frame 20 or 35, and it happens till like 80 or something. Right? What I did is I added this empty and I parented the camera to the empty. So, and that's easy to do as well. You just select your empty, you select your camera first, and then you select your empty to make sure the last thing you select is what you want to be the parent. And then you hit Control P and you hit Object. And that way you still retain this animation of the camera, the original animation of it coming in, which is smooth. But then we add animation by having this parent kind of just move up and down. And I just made these little random rotations of the empty. And if we look down here, we could see, of course, if I just select the empty and hit period on the numpad, then I can see that as I go along, this is just jumping up and down. And I literally just keyframe this by hand, and it's just a simple camera shake. And now if we see them combined, you see that the camera is shaking. And that's all. That's for the animation. It really is it was a lot simpler than I thought at first. I love to challenge myself with these types of projects because they look so epic. You know, the design of it is so epic, and then when you think about making it, it makes you feel like there's no way I can remake that. But if you keep putting time in it, and the time I made this, I think I was doing all the full-time work as well. So I was just like jumping in every day and doing this until I figured it out. And I actually abandoned this the first time when the letters and the animation of that was done, because I couldn't get the background designed. In this, the background is so much harder for me to design exactly. Those streaks and the movement of the background and these other little elements and the light coming, it's hard to get this same exact look down, but I think I did pretty good. a year later. Okay, so now let's move over to what I did with shading. For this one I was using EEVEE. So one thing I did know if I was looking at my reference is that there's kind of a uniform amount of lighting and there's some backlights. So if I pause like here, you see this area here that's like reflecting that backlight. And so there is some lighting coming from behind, and of course lighting from the front. So the first default way to think of it is, let's just put in some lighting. Let's just put in some front lights and some back lights. So I added, if I go to this view so we can see better, top view, I have 3 point lights in the beginning, in the front, and I have 3 area lights in the back. And then if I look at the color of it, these are all white. I think maybe all of them are white, I guess. Yeah, I did all the color in the shader. And then we have a side light, also an area light from the side, from the right side, just shining on the 3, because the 3 to me looked like up here, this side, the 3 up here looks a lot brighter than on the bottom. And just adding these pretty much default lighting. I mean, any scene you want to light is gonna need some front lighting, some back lighting. If you know what a 3-point lighting is, you want to give something halo from behind, you want to give it a nice edge, and so that's what we did. But one thing I saw in the reference is these letters actually are see-through. So like the 3 for sure, and again I can maybe blow this up, but you see that there's detail inside the 3 that's literally you could see through it. And also the K here, or the R. Oh no, it's a K, yeah. So there is a little bit of see-throughness that may turn off by the end, right? So the way I achieved that is solidified this mesh. So I have subdivision surface on it first, which is still left over from modeling, and then solidify. And I just set the thickness to 0.5, and this gives us a mesh that's hollow in the inside. Okay, so now to go about shading, I fiddled with the shaders for so long, and I ended up, if we look at it closely, we see that the 3 is actually see-through. So we see that the 3 has an inside, and we see the outside of the 3, and all the letters actually are kind of looks like glass. And I was scouring the internet for good glass shaders or shader node designs and stuff, and I found a shader that I'm going to link down in the description called cwGlass. This gave me the best glass shader, easiest to use for now, and it is pretty simple now that I look at it. I've done this over a year ago, so. But one thing I found as I was going through as I was looking at the shading of this reference is that once we turn, the see-throughness is gone. So I was thinking maybe I'm just gonna render 2 versions, one with this shader all the way till here, and then I'll switch the shader, and in After Effects I could just blend the 2 together, so it starts in this and ends in the other one. But I was fiddling so long that I had an idea to separate these letters to their front face and side faces, including the 3. And then we have in the case of the 3, we have this outer edge. But everything else, the K is just the front face and then the side and back face. And they use 2 different shaders. The one in the front is just a simple BSDF, principled BSDF with these colors. Here's the hex number if you want to 1A1947. And then the side one, the CW glass, I just adjusted the color to fit the settings. It's really nothing else has really changed. Roughness, specular, metallic. You can kind of play with your BSDF till your heart desires, and you just want to get it close. A lot of it is gonna be done in After Effects, and I did a bunch of effects there. So the background transparency you can achieve by going to your render settings under film. You're gonna see transparent. So I have it just transparent. Originally I think I was fiddling with a background structure, but I just wanted it transparent because we're gonna export this as an image sequence and import this into After Effects, and this will be one of the pieces we'll use, and we'll design the background on the next video. And of course for Parabellum I use this lighter shade, again very simple, this lighter shade of BSDF, this blue, and that's just because in After Effects I will have to have about that type of color. If you look at that color, I may have actually grabbed that exact color from just a screenshot, and that's really all of it. We have good front lighting, back lighting. The effect that I don't have here is this reflection of this reflection. It looks like there's a light behind us, is really what all it looks like. There's like it looks like there's a softbox behind us. As the letters turn, they reflect part of the softbox, and that's literally what it looks like to me. And in the third video, we're going to take everything we have here as we exported this. Of course, you want to export this. You render it into an animation, and you have to know how to do all that already. And you export this as a PNG sequence with what I use is PNG usually, but no compression and transparent background. And that way we're ready to the final step, which we're going to start in After Effects and then drag all this stuff in there and create the background and really polish this piece up to the final look. Of course, I do a lot of other stuff, so if you want to follow, like, subscribe, this is going on to multiple platforms. Thank you so much for watching. Any suggestions, any critique, anything, please give it to me. I welcome everything. So awesome, thanks for coming. See you next time.